but the humidity is so high. It's just you get into the upper 80s and low to mid 90s, and almost insufferable outside. Unless you've got some air movement, it's pretty tough.
I'm jealous right now. You just had to show us that, because you know what we have now? We have that Oklahoma brown out here. The grass is turning brown. It's cloudy.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think as long as the battery's okay, I think I'll sit out here for a little while.
Yes, please, rub it in. Rub it in, Wayne. Rub it in.
I was out there last week, but Wayne, here's my temperature sensor in my backyard right now.
Oh, golly.
Yeah.
And what's your wind? What's your wind?
It's what? Still about 10 to 15, guys, right?
Yeah.
The wind chill factor is at least 15 degrees outside.
I used to, when I first came here, I made some friends on the golf course, and I said, I don't know what golf club to use because there's no wind.
You're not used to it. Oh, man, you know what? I wish I use that excuse a lot out here, Wayne, because I always blame my bad golf game on the wind. Oh, I should have used a 7 instead of a 6.
That's it. That's it.
That's it. Well, you know what? Jonathan will join us any moment now, but this is going on great. So let's just go ahead and we'll go ahead and get this started. So here we are. This is episode number 42 of the Oklahoma Weather Show. We are actually looking back at the last 60 years of KOCO television right here in Oklahoma City and in Oklahoma, and talking to some familiar faces. Today's guest, Wayne Shattuck. I think many people who are from Oklahoma grew up watching TV back in the 70s and 80s. They are very familiar with Wayne. Wayne, we actually had a lot of input from people when I told them that you were coming on, and they're saying, oh my gosh, I'm so excited Wayne is coming on. So Wayne, great to have you here. Kind of tell us, what are you doing these days? How's life?
Well, life is good. I'm kind of winding down my career. I'm 66 years old. I'm going to be 67 next May, and I think I'm retiring at the end of the year. It's a little bit up in the air because they haven't found a replacement yet, and I may have to work a few weekends into the new year, a month or two. But things are winding down.
Things are winding. You know, I got to ask this though, because obviously you were here in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma weather, as we know it today, is huge. And I think when you talk about severe weather, there's no bigger severe weather market in the entire world than right here in Oklahoma City. You were back here during what I guess many people would call the weather wars, when all these stations were going head to head. We still have this weather war going on. But kind of talk about your time here in the 1970s and 80s and what it was like on a severe weather day, and just kind of walk us through your operations beginning to end.
Well, of course, it was kind of like in the embryonic days. It was much different than it is now. When I went to Oklahoma City in February of '78, I believe, that was the first station I had that we had our own radar, and it was a black and white AVQ-10, which was an old military aircraft radar that had been adapted to TV use. And it painted a very good picture within 50 miles of the radar site. Couldn't look out farther than that, but it did a good job there. We had ground spotter. The first year I was there, we didn't have a helicopter. We did have ground spotters. We had a great group of photogs headed up by Chris Lee. And when things got rough, they were on the road chasing those tornadoes. So things were, I mean, it felt like we were on the leading edge at that time, and I guess we were, but it was not nearly as sophisticated as it is.
You know, you said you're headed by Chris Lee. You know, Chris Lee is still here in Oklahoma City. I mean, there's never a day when there's severe weather that you don't at least hear Chris Lee's name on television at least 50 or 60% of the time. Chris is still here. So back in the 70s, you know, you're thinking a lot about severe weather, and then you look at today, and as you mentioned, you know, it's completely different. Do you ever miss it?
I miss the adrenaline rush sometimes. What I don't miss, it seemed like And this would happen. I don't know if this has happened to you folks, but it seems like this would happen multiple nights, night after night. We'd go through periods in the springtime where we would be on the air, standing by with a severe thunderstorm or tornado watch until 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and it would be night after night. And that gets a little bit weary after a while. But it was a rush.
I bet it was. Do you ever find yourself kind of bringing in some of your Oklahoma roots to any type of weather coverage when you're on air? Because now you're down in Florida, and y'all get some nasty weather down there. But do you ever just say, you know what, I learned this, and what I'm doing today is what I learned in Oklahoma?
Well, you know, I guess one thing that you think of is tornadoes. The folks that are either natives here or have been here a long time, and they hear a tornado warning from us, they get really scared. And sometimes I have to, and our entire staff does this too. We try to remind them that the tornadoes down here are not like the tornadoes in Tornado Alley. Our 99% of our tornadoes are F1s, EF1s, and they're less than 100 miles per hour. That will take down a screened-in back porch. That will do some minor damage, but it certainly doesn't do the structural damage that the F3s, 4s, and 5s do elsewhere. I think that's a reminder that we try to. We certainly don't want to downplay the severity of the storms, but sometimes people really get panicky down here when they hear a tornado warning.
So, yeah, absolutely, and I can certainly imagine so. I mean, people get obviously.
Damon, a tornado warning or a water spout. Seems like in the last 2 years we've had more water spouts than I remember for the previous 18 years that I've been here. It's and of course, occasionally most of those die out over water, but occasionally those come on shore and become a weak tornado. But 9 or 10 times out of 10, they're the very weak ones, and they don't last very long.
Do you ever catch yourself watching severe weather coverage online?
Occasionally, if there's something big happening back, I almost referred to back home around you guys, it'll be picked up by CNBC or some of the other cable stations, and you bet it pulls me in like a moth.
What weather events do you remember covering here that just stick out?
There is one, and it was a big education for me. I got there, I think, in February of '78, and March or April of '79 was the Wichita Falls tornado. And I grew up in Iowa, Northwest Iowa, and we had tornadoes, but they were small ones. Nothing compared to an F4 or F5, and we were, by that time in '79, we did have Sky 5. You guys still call it Sky 5?
Oh, we sure do.
All right, great. There's a good history there. And anyway, I remember the night of the tornado. We were in a little old building on Portland and May, I believe, or 63rd and May. That's what it was, 63rd and May, and it was never designed to be a television station. But anyway, the weather office was back in the back, and it was the only weather office I think I've ever had that had a window in it. But we were starting to get information in from the National Weather Service about the tornado, and we did most of the 6 p.m. newscast from the weather office, and me just relaying what information that we were getting. Of course, our radar wasn't any good for it, but we were getting every 30 minutes a hard copy, black and white, glossy satellite picture, and we would put that. We had a frame built. Art department built a frame, and on plexiglass in front of the picture, they built the outline of the United States, and we would put that glossy picture in, and we used that. Showing the system and talk to some folks down there. So that was a bit of a shock. Then the next day, we took Sky 5, news department, and I went down there and did I think we did some live reports down there, putting a satellite truck up on somewhere in the Wichita Mountains and
Right,
doing
Mount Scott.
a link, yeah, and doing a link from there. But what was the education for me? Walking through a neighborhood, and as far as I could see left or right, everything was down to the slab or maybe one or two interior walls were standing. I had never seen anything like that. That certainly gave me respect for what could be done. And then, of course, later the educational film by the National Weather Service, Terrible Tuesday, came out, and that also painted a very good picture. But that one event was the one that really woke me up.
I had a gentleman that actually messaged me last night, Wayne, and he said that you were the reason that he got into weather, and it was about an Edmund tornado. Do you remember the Edmund tornado?
I do. I do. The main thing I remember about it is that I mean it was a I don't think it lasted very long. It was fairly short-lived, but quite a bit of damage. We did a special out of it later on, and I mean we had again the photogs were streaming up. You know what was neat back in those days? The photogs would fight to be who was out the door first to go after a story, whether it was weather or news. I mean, it was we had a great team that was just very competitive, and they wanted to be on top of it. But yeah, I do remember the Edmund tornado.
Yeah, that was, you know, there is so much competitiveness in this market. Oklahoma City in itself, whenever we have people that are coming in here for the first time, I always say, you know, the amount of people that watch news in this market is very, very high, and it is a very competitive market. I mean, you have some powerhouse stations all over the place between 5, 4, Channel 9. So there's definitely a lot going on in this market, and even telling young people in here, you know, when you come here, be prepared to work your tail off, because that is what this market demands. We have given people for the last 60 years some phenomenal weather coverage and news coverage that they expect that. Now, along the way, you know, I know that you kind of stepped out of Oklahoma City a few times, and then you came back, and then you left, and you came back. It seems like Oklahoma City certainly has a very special place in your heart, huh?
It really does. In fact, the last time we came back, that was uh, the second time I was there. I should not have grabbed for the brass ring. I got a chance to go to L.A. and I did it. And once out there, less than 6 months, I knew it was a mistake. It was just not a place that my wife or I liked being, and we wanted to come back. And I got lucky enough to come back. I was not lucky enough to come back to Channel 5 for the third time, but I came back. I was over Channel 4, and that was it. That was going to be our last move. Well, for anybody that's been in the business for a while, you know that your security or longevity is very subjective. It depends so much on the whims of management, and if ratings aren't where management thinks it should be, they'll bring in consultants, and consultants will usually it's the first thing that happens either with consultants or a change in management. The first thing they do is say, let's change the on-air team. Well, I was even when I was in Dallas, we'd gotten to #1, first time ever, knocked off FAA, and we had a change in management, and everybody except the female anchor got bumped out. I
Oh,
mean, it was just again, it's the whims of management, really, and consulting. So I guess I'm rambling here. I'm sorry. Last time I came back was wanted to come back, and that was going to be home. We were there 4 years, and a consultant said you could do better with somebody different. Well, I'll tell you, if you don't mind me rambling for one more minute.
please do, please do.
This is an honest story, and they hired a consultant or a guy from Miami to be the news director, and at Channel 4, And after 1 or 2 months, he came to me and said, "Wayne, you're not making the storms exciting enough." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, you're not getting excited. You're not translating the urgency to the people." And I said, "Sir, this is Oklahoma. We have a pretty knowledgeable viewership here. If it's bad, I'm going to tell them it's bad. But if it's not that bad, I'm not going to oversell it." Well, about 2 or 3 months after that, he found someone across the street who used to be my weekend guy, who would sell it to his level of satisfaction. And so that when that happened, then I knew my longevity at 4 was not going to last. So bottom line, it's been fun, and I've gotten to see a lot of parts of the country, but it's not the most secure business in the world.
No, it's not. And along the way, I mean, when I was reading your bio, Wayne, I mean, your bio just has all these fascinating places that you've been to, and including.
I'm old.
Yeah. You're getting ready to retire. Good Morning America. Filling in on Good Morning America. I had the chance to do that for the first time late last year, but
Right.
only once. But for you, you're able to do it. What was that like? Kind of walk us through, that phone call when you finally get that phone call and they're saying, "This is GMA." What was it like?
Well, I think it came about because when I was in Dallas, the guy that was hired to replace John Coleman, a nice young guy, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name. He had a 2-year contract with a 1-year network out, and there were rumors that that network wasn't really happy with him, and they were going to replace him. Well, I thought at that level, certainly I wasn't being represented by anybody, and I thought I needed to have somebody represent me. So I called across the street over to FAA to a legendary news director there, a longtime guy named Marty Haig, very highly thought of in the business. I think he thought I was calling for a job, but I told him the situation, and I said I have no idea who to contact, and I asked him for his recommendation, and he said a guy that I've used a number of years, and I think he's a pretty good guy, is a guy named Kenny Lindner out of LA. So I contacted Kenny, sent him a tape, and Kenny decided to represent me and pitch me for GMA. Well, they ended up keeping this young man for another year, and but I think that was how I got on the radar for Good Morning America. Then the job in Dallas came to an end, and I was very lucky to get rehired at Channel 5, and I was up there, I guess, about a year, and I get a call from a female EP at Good Morning America, but I didn't know that, and she wanted to know if I would consider doing a big Christmas vacation fill-in for Spencer Christian, and I thought it was my buddies trying to run a scam on me, and so I bottom line, I hung up on her. And so, fortunately, she called back, convinced me that this was real, and so I asked management, and they said yes, and that ended up being the first week, Christmas week, that Christmas '87, that I filled in for Spencer.
How was it? I mean, how nerve-wracking was it when you're getting ready to go on network and you hear them tossing to you and you're thinking, it's point and overturn, this is it? I mean, what were the butterflies like?
It didn't seem bad at first, and fortunately, they sent me up there on the 23rd, flew up on the 23rd, and then the morning of the 24th, Christmas Eve day, they had me shadow Spencer, because not only Good Morning America, they used to do a program called World News This Morning that ran from 6 to 7, and it was 4 individual 15-minute news and weather blocks, and local stations could take as little or as much as they wanted. but Spencer also did on that. So I followed, and everything was fine. And then the next morning, I get in at about 5 till 5, or I mean 5 till 5, and they have a Met that came in at midnight, and he worked all night long, doing all the prep work. Really, he wasn't there, and I thought, well, all right, he's already done the maps. He's maybe taking them upstairs to graphics department art, submitting them, and about 2 or 3 minutes after 5, I get a call, and it's the executive producer, and she says, "Is Rick there?" And I said, "No," and she says, "I'll call you back." And so she calls me back in about 5 minutes. Rick had gone to a Christmas party, had drank, and overslept. He's out on Long Island. It's snowing to beat the man, and he'll be in. It'll be about an hour before he gets in. So she says, "Can you put the weather together?" I said, "Yeah, no problem. I can do it." Well, I'm no dummy. I'd seen them using the computer the day before, so I sat down the computer, turned it on. First thing comes up is the password. I don't know what the password. They never gave me the password. They never thought I'd be using it. So I didn't have any data. Thankfully, there was a die-fax machine spitting out weather maps that I could get some data off of that. I got a national map. I drew lots of fronts and some highs and lows. I gave it to a page, sent him up for art to make a map out of that. But I needed a temperature map, and I had no way to get the temperature expected highs around the country. So I thought about calling back to the National Weather Service in Oklahoma City. I thought about trying to call, I think Butch McCain was our morning guy. I thought about calling him. And then I had the kid, one of the pages, run out and get a New York Times, open up the weather page, and got the predicted highs out of the New York Times. And that got us on and through that first hour of World News this morning and the first hit on Good Morning America before our Met got in and was able to bring things back up to speed.
You know, I this past year when I went up there, I had to remember where I was because in Oklahoma, 2 inches of snow is a pretty big deal, and there was 2 inches of snow coming into Chicago, and I remember thinking, all right, 2 inches of snow in Chicago is not that big of a deal, so don't sell it out and say, you know, this is a huge snowstorm going into Chicago, and it's only 2 inches. So it's certainly pretty challenging. Wayne, you know, a lot of our viewers just want to know now, what are you up to these days? I mean, I know you're getting ready to retire, but what's your life been like since you last came to Oklahoma?
Well, it's been good. You know, both my wife and I, some of our best friends in the world are in Oklahoma. The most genuine, greatest people we know are from Oklahoma, and we try to get back as much as we can, a couple of times a year, to visit them, and we have them down here when we can. So I've kept in contact with a number of good friends from Oklahoma. My wife has about another year and a half before she retires. I know she wants to travel a lot, but we've been able to do some traveling already. A couple of years ago, we went to Greece and Turkey, and might get to Germany next year. Number of points we'd like to get in continental Europe, but that's up in the air. This is, I think the reason that we ended up, or I've been fortunate enough that they haven't kicked me out of here until now. What has been fairly good over the past 20 years, and I'm not really speaking really about the weather, but the people down here probably have been as close to the people that I was able to meet in Oklahoma. And the reason, I think, is that on the east coast of Florida, which I also lived over there for a while, everybody comes down on I-95 from the northeastern U.S. And they're good people, but it's a different mentality. They're a harder, more brusque type of people. The license plates you see coming down here are from the Midwest. And 9 times out of 10, I can walk down a sidewalk, and when I meet someone, I can say hi, and 9 times out of 10, they'll say hi back. I think it's a softer, a little friendlier mentality down here on this side, on the Gulf Coast side, than the Atlantic side.
That's a good point. I grew up outside of Washington D.C. in Northern Virginia, and people up in the Northeast are typically they have a point. They're headed somewhere, and they want to get from A to B as fast as possible. And so sometimes it can, they're not as friendly, wanting to shake hands and saying hi. So Wayne, you're spot on there. You know, you say you come back to Oklahoma from time to time. What's changed the most about this metropolitan city since you've been here?
The last couple of times, I remarked to a good friend of mine that where's the recession? I see building and expansion. It seems like a very vital city. And getting the basketball team was fantastic. It just seems that the growth is ongoing, and gosh, I think the last time I was there, we went up to Oak Tree and played. All the growth that I see from northern, Kilpatrick. Is it Kilpatrick?
Yes.
From there northward, all the housing, and even some retail that's being done now. It's just it seems like it's going to be completely filled up before long between Kilpatrick and all up to north of Edmond. I mean, it's just the building seems to be going like gangbusters.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of growth going on up in that part of the city. I mean, Edmond and Guthrie are basically about to merge, and then you look on the south side, and Moore and Norman are basically about to merge into one. So there's definitely a lot of growth going on in this city. And I've only been here for 5 years now, going on 6. But even in the 6 years that I've been here, I mean, so much has happened. Obviously we have a full staff here this morning. We have Shelby, Jonathan, Brad. We're all pretty young. I mean, we were probably not even born when you were starting to work here in Oklahoma City.
You're in the best time of your lives.
What advice would you have for us? These young meteorologists. We're in our 20s and 30s. What would you tell us if you could just talk to us about? Give us a grandpa moment.
Well, kids, I mean, you're smart enough. You know the business is changing. I always thought that the business was going to change, but I think the thing that has surprised me most is how fast it has changed. You could be back in the 70s and early 80s. You could be the number 3 rated network affiliate in a market and still be making ungodly amounts of money. There's always been so many dollars in the advertising pie, but pre-cable there were much fewer slices. So the outlets, the network affiliates, 1 or 2 independent stations, radio stations, they were soaking up all the advertising dollars. Once cable came in, now internet, more of that advertising dollar is going there. So it's making the television stations, the group owners, networks much more nervous. And it's changing the business model on how people are paid, job titles. I mean, I'm sure you are all asked to do more than you ever thought you were going to do when you were coming up through college. I don't know if this, I should call it a malady, but have MMJs hit your market?
Yes, they have.
It is. I think I probably could have lasted another 1, 2, or 3 years if I would have embraced the MMJ mold, because my corporation, Scripps Howard, when it dove into it deeply about 5 years ago, and I and our chief just decided that there was enough on our plate to try to keep up with all the new iterations from our vendor WSI and the other things we were asked to do that we weren't going to do the MMJ route. That has worked for him. That's worked for me up to now. But I think our company, in my case, I think they can get someone younger, pay him less than I'm making now, have him I'm doing the weekends now, plus I fill in whenever the morning girl's gone or when the nighttime guy is gone. So, but they can get a full day or a full position person, 5-day work person instead of me at 4 days, and he can do the weekends. He can fill in. Plus, he can do a one-man band news shot on any of his regular days that he's working. They need bodies. They're doing so much more. They have more content to fill. Not only the TV, but we throw stuff to Facebook, through our webpage. We have minute updates on our mobile device platform that we have to feed every day, news, weather, and sports. So they need bodies to fill slots to help put out all of this content that they're trying to put out. I think stations are in kind of this is a transitional mode, trying to figure out how to make internet and web a viable or commercial success, because I see audiences out there are wanting news on demand rather than sitting down and watching 5, 6, and 10 o'clock newscasts. A lot of the young people just aren't doing that anymore. So to survive, they've got to come up with a new model to have this information. People still want information, but they've got to package it in a way that people are going to accept it and embrace it.
You know, you're spot on there, Wayne. You've been doing this for 40 years now. Have you done everything that you set out to accomplish back when you were in your 20s and teens?
Well, I would have. I think probably mostly I have. I grew up in a town of 350 people in northwest Iowa, and I was supposed to take over my father's trucking business. I probably have been much luckier than I deserve to be. I've been able to see many parts of the country that I never would have been able to live in many different parts of the country, make friends all over the country. So that's been very fortunate. I think the biggest thing, I've been able to do something that I really do enjoy. I still enjoy getting on the air and telling the story of the day. That is a daily enjoyment, and then every once in a while you get the feeling that maybe you were able to save someone's life or somebody's property. So that's been a big satisfaction.
Absolutely. I mean, very well said. Very well said. I mean, we've been talking here for 30 minutes now. I know Brad, Jonathan, and Shelby here, join in on this as well. Guys, you want to say anything?
It's kind of hard to chime in when I'm just sitting back and listening. Hey, Wayne, you've seen this industry change. I thought it was interesting you were talking earlier about kind of the changes you've seen it go through. Do you think TV, media, as it is today, is going to survive much longer, or do I need to come up with a different skill set?
Well, the broader base of things you can do, the better shape you are. I mean, the more things you can do, the better shape you are in. Things like this, unfortunately, this MMJ situation. But I think there will always be a need for information, whether it's news, sports, or weather. I think that what is in question is how will it be delivered. One of my fears has been, or is still, someday cable penetration will be so high you know, all the networks own their own programming. What's to have a network come to their affiliate and say, look, it's just not economical for us to putting our content through your station. We're going to put it on one of our own cable stations. If that happens, then every network affiliate becomes an independent. Well, I would submit that in a market our size and a market your size, that maybe 2 stations could become 24-hour news stations and survive. I think the others would be, I mean, they'd start running more infomercials, movies, reruns. I think if network affiliates all of a sudden all became independents, and I think that would be a tremendous big change. But I could see it happen if networks don't want to go through the hassle through affiliates anymore. But hopefully that's a long ways down the road. Did I lose? Guys, did I lose you? Yikes. Let me go plug it back in. I think I'm hearing you and your screen is froze. Well, wait a minute. Damon, I see you moving.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
You're good. So I see you. I see you.
Okay.
You're good. I think we may have lost Brad briefly.
I've got a Wi-Fi extender in the house, and maybe the cat sat on it.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. So, Jonathan, Shelby, anything y'all want to add?
Yeah, you bet. Wayne, Jonathan Condor. I am the weekend meteorologist here at KOCO TV. I worked at K4 for about 5 years, and I too moved away and moved back. I married an Oklahoman, and she's proud of her heritage, and we came back. So I guess the question I have for you, and I really appreciate everything that you've shared. I'll be honest with you, I feel my skill set is very refined. I have a degree in meteorology, and I'm a broadcast meteorologist. That is a very, very small window for employment. So from your experience, as you were moving through your career, was there ever a job that you thought, yeah, I could transition very easily from broadcast meteorology into this as a backup? Have you ever, I mean, like for me, I thought maybe I could be a public information officer. I'm very good at speaking. Maybe that would be a good fallback. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think my limitations have been, and this is my own fault, I am somewhat limited in I don't have a degree. You know, you couldn't do that today and work in most stations, but I didn't, and I think that has held me back, has caused some limitations. So I applaud you for your education, and all of you. The more education you have, the better off you're going to be. I thought about a number of my coworkers in past jobs have left and have gone to public relations in independent companies. That seemed to be a popular route. I don't know if that would have been something that I would have enjoyed or not, but I think it is tough. It is tough. As long as you do the best you can and you work to try to be a little bit better every day and enjoy what you're doing, I think the business is pretty good. I would certainly say that it is.
I had one other question, Wayne. I got booted out. Google and Apple don't get along very well. You were talking earlier how you're in your late 60s. Wayne, I thought here in this market that I'm aging at 3 times the rate that I should with Oklahoma City. You are hope to me that when I'm in my 60s, I won't look like I'm 95, because you, my friend, are one of the best looking late 60-year-old guys I've ever seen.
You haven't seen my liver.
And I am married. I'm married, Okay, so I'm not.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, wow, Wayne looks really good. If I could look like him,
Yeah.
I would love it.
It's thank you, Mom, I guess.
Thanks.
Tell me what you have.
I like, liking what you're doing makes a big, big difference.
And that's the perfect intro into my question, Wayne. You've been doing this a long time. What is your favorite part about it? Do you like the actual forecasting? Is your daily forecast on TV your favorite? Or maybe you like radio? What is kind of your favorite daily activity of the job?
I think in my head is the connection you make with a viewer and giving them useful information. I'll give you a secret. I was very much extremely an introvert when I was young and growing up. And I went to a little junior college out in North Platte, Nebraska. And I made friends with a guy that did weekends at a radio station. And I would go up to meet him at the end of his shift, and to go out and have a beer. And I sat there, and you could see I was kind of mesmerized. And the longer I would sit there, he finally hit me up one day. He said, you're interested in this. You should apply. So I applied, and that was the first thing I'd done that really intrigued me. I was, again, an introvert, but I used the microphone. I could hide behind the microphone and open up. Nobody was there. I was in a room by myself, and I could be expressive. I could have fun. There was no judgment on it, and that was great. I thought that was what I was going to do. Oh, this is terrible. But this was back in the mid '60s. There was one TV station in that town. They were co-owned by the radio station that I was working at. And the GM came to me one day and said, I would like you to do the 10 o'clock weather. And I said, I don't know anything about weather. And he said, I'll show you. Now that's embarrassing to tell you, but that's how it happened. And I mean, there are like something like 215 markets in the country, and they were somewhere in the bottom 3, tiny little market. But he was out on the street all day. He was the general manager, but he was out selling as an active salesman all day. Then he came back and he would do the 6 and 10 weather and the audio books for the next day. So I said yes, and I did pretty basic weather there. But that was even a bigger kick. There was 2 guys in the studio. The camera was another form of a microphone, and I was able to kind of open up. And I think that was the lure for me. But I did realize that if I was going to do that, I better get some meteorology under my belt before I go much.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Interesting. We all have a beginning, Wayne. My beginning is different from your beginning, and Brad's, and Jonathan's, and Shelby's. But certainly this industry and this business model is changing every single day and every year. I remember a long time ago. I shouldn't say a long time ago, about a decade ago, when Facebook was coming out, and TV stations were blocking Facebook, saying that no, you're wasting too much time on Facebook, and now you're encouraged to have a Facebook account. We started doing this podcast earlier in the year, and now it's something that we just kind of keep doing, and certainly it's been a lot of fun, and so we're very thankful that we were able to reach out and talk to you, and of course we'll be sending you a little something in the mail. But Wayne, I know there's still a lot of people that talk about you here in Oklahoma City. I mean, you've had a lasting impression on many Oklahomans.
It was a tremendous place to be and work, and again, I've made a lot of great friends there, and it's funny how life and situations change, and I guess again, one of the few negative things about our business is we are really at the at the whims of management. Sometimes it just makes no sense of changes that they make. But if things would have gone a different way, gosh, maybe I would have been ending my career at KOCO. That would have been nice.
Well, certainly. Well, you know what? Anytime you're back here in Oklahoma, Wayne, please let us know. I'd love to bring some more over dinner.
Yeah, I'd like to stop in and see your shop.
Absolutely. So, well, Wayne, thank you so much for joining us on this show today.
Okay, thanks, guys.